Hello, welcome to SOF training on Deployment Guidance Workshop. If you're joining me for the first time, my name is Agus Rahman. I am a Senior Customer Engineering Architect based out of Sydney, Australia, and I'm part of the Skype Customer Experience and Deployment team. If you've been watching the SOF training series so far, I would expect for you to be familiar with SOF already. For those joining for the first time, you can get further information about SOF from skypeoperationsframework.com. SOF is continuously updated, and we are actively listening to your feedback. Let us know what works, what needs to be corrected, what needs to be added, anything. Please go to skypeoperationsframework.com/feedback to share your inputs. This is version 1 of this training. Due to the ever-changing nature of the Skype for Business online service and SOF itself, I would like to point out that things may have changed upon watching this training. For most recent up-to-date trainings, go to skypeoperationsframework.com/academy. Let's start with the Deployment Guidance Workshop training. The Deployment Guidance Workshop is delivered as part of the deploy stage of the deliver phase in SOF execution model. Typically, you would conduct this workshop as soon as you are finished from the with the prepare stage in the plan phase. So the intent of this workshop is for the project team to go through the SOF deployment guidance checklist asset, the mechanics of the checklist and line-by-line task items, and then customize the checklist to fit to the deployment scope, solution design, and execution plan. This workshop is important for the project team to identify early on the individual tasks that will need to be completed to deploy the solution, and then to provide a way to track the completion of the task, and also to identify all of the relevant SOF assets or technical reference documentations that can assist with the deployment. By the time the deployment guidance workshop is delivered, it is expected that the planned phase has been completed. So by having the vision and scope and execution plan of the project, and also the cloud PBX detailed design, the project team should have a clear picture regarding the deployment scope, solution design, and deployment execution plan. This information will serve as the basis when customizing the deployment guidance checklist. The deployment guidance workshop is considered a success when the project team understands the purpose of deployment guidance checklist as a way to list all of the required tasks to deploy the solution and to provide a way to track the completion of the task. And when the project team completed the customized version of the deployment guidance checklist that is relevant to the organization. And also when the project team identified all of the supplementary task guidance documents, be that SOF assets or other reference documents. And when the project team is able to develop the detailed project plan based on the tasks that have been identified to deliver the solution as part of the customized deployment guidance checklist. So this is when you can expand the tasks in the checklist to multiple activities or multiple tasks within the work stream when you're developing the work breakdown structure. The deployment guidance workshop is not meant for the project team to design the solution for the project, as it is expected to be completed in the Cloud PBX architecture design workshop. It is also not meant for the project team to deploy the solution throughout the workshop, as it will distract the project team from completing the customized deployment guidance checklist. And for the same reason, this workshop is not meant for the project team to develop the detailed project plan for the project. When delivering this workshop, you as the facilitator will first go through the mechanics of the deployment guidance checklist with the workshop participants. You can either open the deployment guidance checklist spreadsheet on the screen or instruct participants to open the file that had been shared previously via email, OneDrive for Business Share, or anything that worked for the team. Once the file is open, the first worksheet or tab that you will see is the Introduction tab. The Introduction tab comes with the instructions on how to use the spreadsheet. This is an example of the checklist for a group of tasks, just for your reference. And you, as the workshop facilitator, will first go over the mechanics of the checklist with the workshop participants. In the deployment guidance checklist, individual tasks are listed with a dedicated column to track completion of the task. When in reviewing mode as part of this workshop, you and the workshop participants can decide whether a task is not applicable to the project. During the actual deployment, the completed column can be used to track the completion of the task. And just to reiterate, the deployment guidance checklist is not there to replace a project plan. Each task includes a description and references to additional information. The additional information could be referring to another SOF assets or public documentation from TechNet. When in reviewing mode as part of this workshop, you and the workshop participants can start listing out the additional SOF assets or reference documentation required for the project so that they will be available for use during the actual deployment activities. In case you don't have the checklist open while watching this session, here's an example of the task, its description, and the column to track task completion. Each task aligns to the stages of the Skype operations framework. In most cases, the task within a stage should be completed prior to moving to the task in the next stage. Within a stage, however, some tasks can be performed in parallel. When developing the project plan later on, the stages information can help you to build out the work streams accordingly. Again, in case you don't have the checklist open while watching this session, here's an example of the task and the stage each of them is associated with. In the deployment guidance checklist, a series of tasks are grouped into a worksheet or tab, if you will, and the tabs are generally ordered based on dependency from left to right, such as network-related tasks depend on the completion of Office 365 core-related tasks, and so on and so forth. When describing this topic, try to avoid lengthy discussion on the tab ordering. Complete the walkthrough of the checklist mechanics first, and we will talk about the tabs in more detail later on. Depending on the scale of the project, some group of tasks will need to be repeated a couple of times, such as in a global rollout of Cloud PBX involving multiple instances of Cloud Connector with multiple project timelines, or various other reasons. When dealing with such scenario, to track multiple instances of deployment tasks, the tabs can be duplicated accordingly. Depending on the solution design, some tabs may no longer be required and they should be deleted. For example, when the overall solution design involves countries not served by PSTN calling throughout the project timeline, then the Cloud PBX Microsoft PSTN tab should be deleted. This concludes the discussions around the checklist mechanics. So once the walkthrough of the checklist mechanics is completed, you as the workshop facilitator will then go through the deployment guidance checklist with the workshop participants in detail to customize it to meet the project requirements. In the current version of the deployment guidance checklist, the following tabs are available in the template document. O365 Core tab for tasks related to Office 365 tenant, identity, etc. Network tab for tasks related to network assessment, remediation, and configuration to support Skype for Business workloads. Broadcast tab for tasks related to Skype meeting broadcast. Microsoft PSTN conferencing tab for tasks related to Cloud PSTN conferencing. Cloud PBX with Microsoft PSTN tab for tasks related to Cloud PSTN conferencing. Cloud PBX with Microsoft PSTN tab for tasks related to Cloud PBX with PSTN calling. Cloud PBX via Cloud Connector tab for tasks related to Cloud PBX with on-premises PSTN connectivity using Cloud Connector. Cloud PBX via Pool tab for tasks related to Cloud PBX with on-premises PSTN connectivity using existing deployment or hybrid. Devices tab for tasks related to devices and peripherals planning and deployment to support Cloud PBX implementation. User Considerations tab for tasks related to end-user enablement planning and configuration. The first tab that you need to go through with the workshop participants is the Office 365 Core tab. This tab contains required activities for all deployments and acknowledging scenarios whereby the organization already deployed other Office 365 workloads such as Exchange Online or SharePoint Online. Some tasks may already be completed and can be marked as completed from the get-go. Tasks related to Office 365 Core revolves around tenant creation, especially if it is a new Office 365 deployment, the procurement, assignment, and verification of Office 365 subscriptions and licenses that are required to enable Cloud PBX and Cloud PSTN conferencing. Office 365 identity setup, be that cloud identity, synchronized identity, or federated identity. Tenant administrators and administrative roles, be that for Office 365 tenant in general or Skype for Business Online service specifically. DNS setup for Skype for Business Online, in particular for the cloud-only deployment model. Skype for Business Online Federation and Skype for Consumer Connectivity configuration, in particular when dealing with hybrid setup and when the organization set up closed federation. This also covers tasks around enablement of call quality dashboard, as this is a very important aspect that you want to make sure that we can track call quality from the beginning. This is the example of the Office 365 Core tab. You, as the workshop facilitator, will need to go through the task with the participants one by one. Mark the tasks that have been completed prior to Skype for Business workload enablement as completed, and those that are not relevant to the project as not applicable. The second tab that you need to go through with the workshop participants is the Network tab. This tab contains the tasks that must be completed at least once. In large engagement with multiple sites and complex network, it may be necessary to duplicate the tab or duplicate the task within the tab. Tasks related to network revolves around validation that network readiness assessment has been completed. This is one of the previous activities in SOF plan phase. At the start of the deployment activities, the checklist will be used to verify that network readiness assessment has been completed. Validation that readiness assessment has been completed. Again, this is one of the previous activities in SOF plan phase. Validation that network remediation tasks as the outcome of network readiness assessment have been completed. This validation covers the network address translation pool size, especially when supporting large number of users. Firewall configuration to support Skype for Business workloads. Efficient routing to Office 365. Quality of services implementation. And split tunnel VPN. And there are tasks around network connectivity testing as the last checkpoint to ensure the network is ready to support Skype for Business workloads. Again, you as the workshop facilitator will need to go through the task with the participants one by one. Mark the tasks that are not relevant to the project as not applicable. The third tab that you need to go through with the workshop participants is the Broadcast tab. Include this tab if Skype meeting broadcast workload is in scope, otherwise it can be deleted. Since the configuration of Skype meeting broadcast is applicable to the whole tenant, it is unlikely that you need to duplicate this tab. Tasks related to broadcast revolves around enablement of Skype broadcast meeting feature in the tenant. Recently, we've updated the service to enable Skype broadcast meeting automatically, but of course, it will be good to use this task item to verify that as well. Configuration of Skype broadcast meeting settings. Additional configurations that need to be completed when deploying for hybrid setup. As one of the workload-specific tab, there are tasks around preparation and execution of user acceptance tests or UAT, execution of pilot and gathering of pilot feedback, making changes and iterate, especially to further fine-tune the configuration of the features based on the pilot feedback, delivery of end-user awareness, and also user enablement for the Skype broadcast meeting feature. This is the example of the broadcast tab. You, as the workshop facilitator, will need to go through the tasks with the participants one by one. The fourth tab that you need to go through with the workshop participants is the Microsoft PSTN conferencing tab. Include this tab if Cloud PSTN conferencing workload is in scope. Otherwise, it can be deleted. It is unlikely that you need to duplicate this tab. However, for large and complex deployment, you may need to duplicate this tab. Tasks related to Microsoft PSTN conferencing revolves around user enablement cadence planning. So is it per site, per office location, per department, per division, or whatever applicable to the organization. And then the default conference bridge phone number for the tenant. This is the default phone number that it will assign to the user when they are not specifically assigned to a site or location. Languages for the conference bridge phone numbers. So in the tenant where you have dedicated conference bridge phone number, this is where the PSTN calling service is available. You'll have the ability to set up your own languages for individual dedicated conference bridge phone number. Tasks around conference bridge settings, such as meeting join experience and the pin length. Customization of meeting invites. Email notification override, such as to prevent users from receiving service-generated email when they are enabled for Cloud PSTN conferencing. This is in particular very important for organizations that want to control the messaging that they will send out to the user. Toll-free number configuration, such as porting the existing numbers or acquiring new service number from Microsoft. PSTN consumption billing setup. This is in particular important if dial out from the conference is required or the toll-free number will be used. And also there's a preparation of input file for SOF user enablement script, including the license assignment. And an assignment of conference number and PIN to the users. And almost similar to previous workload specific tab, there are tasks around preparation and execution of UAT, execution of pilot and gathering of pilot feedback, making changes and iterate, especially to further fine-tune the configuration of the features, delivery of end-user awareness, user enablement for Cloud PSTN conferencing. And in addition, there are monitoring of usage, feedback, and quality, tasks around supporting the solution, and also reporting of usage, health, and key success indicators and quality. Again, this is the example, and you, as the workshop facilitator, will need to go through the task with the participants one by one. The fifth tab that you need to go through with the workshop participants is the Cloud PBX with Microsoft PSTN tab. Include this tab if Cloud PBX with PSTN calling workload is in scope. Otherwise, it can be deleted. It may be necessary to duplicate the tab when the deployment project covers multiple sites across countries already enabled for a Microsoft PSTN calling service. Tasks related to Cloud PBX with Microsoft PSTN share common tasks as the Microsoft PSTN conferencing tab, with notable exceptions around license acquisitions, especially the calling plan add-ons, domestic only or domestic and international calling plans. Phone number acquisition, either by getting new phone numbers from Microsoft or porting existing phone numbers. Emergency locations configuration, and also preparation of input file for SOF user enablement script that includes license assignment, phone numbers, and emergency locations. This is the example of the Cloud PBX with Microsoft PSTN tab. You, as a workshop facilitator, will need to go through the tasks with the participants one by one. The sixth tab that you need to go through with the workshop participants is the Cloud PBX via Cloud Connector tab. Include this tab if Cloud PBX with on-premises PSTN connectivity using Cloud Connector workload is in scope. Otherwise, it can be deleted. It may be necessary to duplicate the tab when the deployment project covers multiple sites. Again, tasks related to Cloud PBX via Cloud Connector are almost similar to Cloud PBX with Microsoft PSTN, with notable exceptions around firewall configuration and certificates issuance for Cloud Connector deployment. Deployment of PSTN gateways or session border controllers or SBCs to provide PSTN connectivity. And the deployment of Cloud Connector itself and PSTN sites and user assignments to the PSTN sites. This is the example of the Cloud PBX via Cloud Connector tab. And again, as the workshop facilitator, you need to go through the tasks with the participants one by one. The seventh tab that you need to go through with the workshop participants is the Cloud PBX via Pool tab. Include this tab if Cloud PBX with on-premises PSTN connectivity using hybrid workload is in scope. Otherwise, it can be deleted. It may be necessary to duplicate the tab when the deployment project covers multiple sites with multiple project timelines. Tasks related to Cloud PBX via Pool are almost similar to Cloud PBX with Microsoft PSTN, with notable exceptions around verification of health of the existing on-premises deployment. This is one way to ensure the issues discovered through readiness assessment activity have been remediated. Since we will be deploying Cloud PBX, it is critical for the project team to ensure that enterprise voice configuration of the on-premises deployment is in healthy state. Firewall configuration and certificates issuance for hybrid deployment. Typically, when remote access and federation have been deployed and in use, you could easily mark the task as completed from the beginning. Hybrid voice configuration. which includes the voice routing policy configuration and which dial plan to use, be that on-premises dial plan or cloud dial plan. This is the example of Cloud PBX via Pool tab. You, as the workshop facilitator, will need to go through the tasks with the participants one by one. Mark the tasks that have been completed as completed, and those that are not relevant to the project as not applicable. The 8th tab that you need to go through with the workshop participants is the Devices tab. This tab contains the tasks that must be completed at least once. In a large engagement with device rollout involving multiple sites, multiple project timelines, it may be necessary to duplicate the tab or the task within the tab. Tasks related to devices revolves around the deployment of client software and mobile apps. While this is just one line item in the checklist, if the organization is coming from existing SCAPA server or link server deployment, then this could be already sorted and can be marked as completed. For desktop deployment, however, please also consider the transition from MSI-based installation to click-to-run or C2R-based installation. For MSI-based installation, service pack requirements to get Link 2013 to Skype for Business 2015 is the typical sticking point that we've seen. With some organizations still using Office 2010 for most of the Office applications and had installed Link 2013 just to provide unified comms capabilities, most of them didn't realize that Link 2013 is based on Office 2013 and will require servicing applicable to Office 2013, such as updates or service packs. To upgrade Link 2013 to Skype for Business 2015, Office 2013 Service Pack 1 is the minimum requirement, and it must be installed prior to updating to Skype for Business 2015. In large organizations with distributed locations, the Office 2013 SP1 upgrade that hovers around 1 GB in size can be a challenge. And therefore, planning for the client update deployment must be done early on. There are also more and more features that will only be introduced in click-to-run version of Skype for Business desktop client. And if the feature required by ODR is only available there, plan for the replacement of MSI-based installation with click-to-run based installation. So the actual work breakdown of this task will involve a lot of work that needs to be planned for. This step also covers tasks around verification of device alignment based on user personas. Device to user personas mapping has been covered in the adoption planning in the plan phase. And this task is meant to validate the alignment. Some users may require IP phones, some can be catered by USB headsets or Bluetooth headsets, and some will need to be equipped with USB conference speakerphone. And then also there's a task around planning for device distribution, be that centralized or distributed device distribution. Depending on the scale of rollout and market availability, centralized distribution may make sense. However, considerations around lead time and customs declaration impacting the lead time must be addressed. Environmental readiness, such as USB port availability. For example, for fleet of users using Surface Pro devices or other devices with limited number of USB ports, rollout of docking station or USB hub may need to be included in the plan. When deploying IP phones, if the switches are not enabled for Power over Ethernet or PoE, or when deploying wireless peripherals with charging dock. Additional power points may need to be provided, perhaps by simply adding power extension. There's also a task around planning for device deployment, including ensuring device rollout support is available on site, from simply plugging the devices to the PCs, power outlet, network port, all the way to supporting end-user queries. This could leverage existing IT resources or temporary resources to support the rollout. Planning for device management and device update solution. This is in particular very important when rolling out IP phones, and also some computer attached peripherals that now has management solution as well. And of course, there are common tasks applicable to devices deployment as previously discussed, such as executing pilot, making changes and iterate based on pilot feedback, etc. So this is the example of the devices tab. You as the workshop facilitator will need to go through the task with the participants one by one. Mark the tasks that have been completed as completed and those that are not relevant to the project as not applicable. The ninth tab that you need to go through with the workshop participants is the user considerations tab. This tab contains the tasks that must be completed at least once. In a large engagement with end-user enablement involving multiple sites, it may be necessary to duplicate the tab or duplicate the task within the tab. Tasks related to user consideration revolves around tasks that may have been completed in the workload-specific tabs. The separation of this tab is useful when there are dedicated resources focusing on end-user enablement, and while there are additional resources focusing on infrastructure or backend enablement and configuration. With regards to Cloud PBX, the delegation relationship can be maintained by migrating users involved in delegation relationship together. This task is used to ensure the relationship is maintained. Depending on the organization requirements, the default policies may not meet the requirements for the org, and therefore, different policies must be applied to the user. This is where the planning for the additional policies assignment will be done. Keep in mind that in Skype for Business Online, organizations cannot create their own policies, but they can apply various other policies that have been included in the service. The policies may not always be surfaced through the Skype for Business Admin Center, and therefore they can only be configured using remote PowerShell. When meeting migration is involved, this is where the project team is tracking the deployment of meeting update tool and the awareness of the tool. This is the example of the user consideration tab. You as a workshop facilitator will need to go through the tasks with the participants one by one and mark the tasks that are not relevant to the project as not applicable. Once the customized deployment guidance checklist is completed, the project team can start incorporating the tasks into the project plan and commence with the solution deployment. Project team can track the progress using the checklist and from the prepare stage all the way to the completion of deploy stage. Once the solution is ready for organization-wide deployment, the project can move to enable stage and followed by adoption activities. To sum up, The Deployment Guidance Workshop is expected to level set the understanding of the purpose of deployment guidance checklist for all project team members. By going through the checklist template and identifying available SOF assets that are relevant to the project, the project team is expected to be able to come out with a customized project-specific deployment guidance checklist and collected all the SOF deploy stage assets that will be beneficial for the solution deployment. The project-specific deployment guidance checklist will serve as an input document for the development of a detailed project plan. And once the deployment project is underway, the customized deployment guidance checklist will be used to track the completion of each task. Thank you very much for watching this training. Please refer to the resources described here to learn more about SOF, give your feedback on SOF, and to look for additional trainings that will be delivered as part of Skype Academy on SOF.